What would you do if, at your daughter's funeral, the person you trusted most looked you in the eye and told you to pack your bags, that you were being thrown out of your own home? I'm Margaret. I'm 58 years old. And the day I buried my only child was the day I discovered who my real family was. This is my story, and I promise you, the ending will shock you as much as it shocked everyone in that courtroom. The rain came down in sheets the day we buried my daughter Sarah. I remember thinking how fitting it was, like the whole world was. Crying with me, I stood at the graveside in my black dress, the one Sarah had helped me pick out for her own wedding just 3 years earlier. Never in a million years did I think I'd be wearing it to say goodbye to her. Sarah was only 32 when the cancer took her, 32 years old, with her whole life ahead of her. She fought for 18 months, and I was there every single day. I held her hand through every chemo session, every hospital stay, every moment of pain. Her husband, Derek, well, he was there too, but mostly on his phone, checking work emails. Making business calls in the hallway, I watched my baby girl fade away, and there wasn't a thing I could do to stop it. The funeral was held at St. Mary's Church, the same place where she'd been baptized, where she'd had her first communion, where she'd walked down the aisle to marry Derek. I paid for everything. The flowers, the casket, the reception. Derek said he was handling the emotional burden and couldn't deal with the logistics. I didn't mind. It gave me something to do. Something to focus on besides the unbearable weight of losing my child. After the service, people filed past me with their condolences. Most of them I barely heard. Their words floated around me like ghosts. I was numb, completely hollowed out. My sister Carol stood beside me, holding my elbow like she was afraid I might collapse. Honestly, I might have. Then came the reception at my house, the house where Sarah grew up, where she'd learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where she'd gotten ready for prom, where she'd told me she was getting married. It's a beautiful old Victorian that my late husband Tom and I bought when Sarah was just 2 years old. Tom passed away from a heart attack when Sarah was 15, so it had been just the two of us for so many years. This house held every memory I had of my family. People filled the living room, the dining room, spilling out onto the back porch despite the rain. They ate the sandwiches I'd ordered, drank coffee, and shared stories about Sarah. I moved through the rooms like a ghost myself, accepting hugs, nodding at stories, but not really there. That's when Derek found me in the kitchen. I was standing at the sink, looking out at the rain-soaked garden where Sarah used to play. I heard his footsteps behind me, and I turned, expecting maybe a hug, maybe a moment of shared grief. We'd both lost her, after all. Instead, Derek crossed his arms and looked at me with cold, business-like eyes. "Margaret, we need to talk about practical matters," he said. I blinked at him. Practical matters? We'd just buried my daughter 2 hours ago. "This house," he continued, gesturing around, "it's too much for you to handle alone. You're getting older, and frankly, it's not practical. I think you should start looking at senior living communities, nice ones. Of course, I'll help you find something suitable." I couldn't speak. I just stared at him. "I'm planning to sell the house," he said, checking his watch like he had somewhere else to be. "The market's good right now, and this property is worth quite a bit. You've got about 60 days to make arrangements. That should be plenty of time." And then he walked away. I stood there frozen. As the word sank in, he was kicking me out of my own house, on the day of my daughter's funeral. That night, after everyone had left and the house fell silent, I sat in Sarah's childhood bedroom and cried until there were no tears left. The room still looked much like it had when she was in high school. Posters on the walls, books on the shelves, her cheerleading trophy on the dresser. How could Derek do this? How could he stand there, on the worst day of my life, and tell me I had to leave my home, But then a worse thought crept in. How could he sell my house? I sat up, wiping my eyes. Tom and I had bought this house together. After Tom died, it was mine. Sarah had never lived here as an adult, except for a few months after college. Derek certainly had never lived here, so how could he possibly have the authority to sell it, unless my heart started pounding. I got up and went to my bedroom, to the filing cabinet where I kept all my important documents. I pulled out the folder labeled house and started going through the papers with shaking hands. Deed, mortgage papers from 1994, the mortgage payoff letter from 2008, property tax receipts. Everything was in my name, mine and Tom's originally. Then just mine after he passed. Relief flooded through me. Derek was bluffing. He had no claim to this house. But then I remembered something Sarah had said, maybe 6 months before she died. She'd been having a good day, was sitting in the sunroom, with me drinking tea. She'd mentioned that Derek had helped her organize some paperwork to make sure everything was in order in case the worst happened. At the time, I thought she meant her will. Maybe life insurance. I didn't ask questions. She was dying, and talking about logistics felt cruel. Had she done something with the house? I couldn't sleep that night. As soon as 8 a.m. rolled around, I called my lawyer, Robert Chen. I'd known Robert for 20 years. He'd handled Tom's estate, helped me with some contract issues with a bad contractor. Written my will. Robert, I need to see you today, I said. It's urgent. He heard the stress in my voice and fit me in at 11. When I sat down in his office and told him what Derek had said, Robert's expression grew serious. Do you have any reason to believe Sarah might have added Derek's name to the deed? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. She mentioned organizing paperwork, but I didn't think. Let me pull the property records, Robert said, turning to his computer. I watched his face as he typed and searched. I watched his eyebrows rise. I watched his jaw tighten. Margaret. He said slowly, according to the county records, there was a deed modification filed 8 months ago. The house is now in joint tenancy with right of survivorship between you and Sarah. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means that when Sarah passed away, her share automatically transferred to. Let me check the beneficiary designation. He scrolled down. His face went pale. It transferred to her spouse, Derek Morrison. The room spun. Are you telling me Derek owns half my house? I whispered, I'm afraid so, and in a joint tenancy. Either party can force a sale through a legal process called partition. Margaret, I'm so sorry, but Derek might actually be able to make you sell this house. I thought I'd cried all my tears the night before. I was wrong. I left Robert's office in a daze. How had this happened? Why would Sarah do this without telling me? I drove home on autopilot. My mind racing. Sarah wouldn't have done this to hurt me. She loved me. We were close, especially after Tom died. We were each other's best friends. There had to be an explanation when I got home. I went straight to the guest room, where Sarah had stayed during her last weeks. She'd been too weak to climb the stairs to her old bedroom, so I'd converted the first floor guest room into a space for her. The hospice bed was gone now, picked up the day after she died, but her things were still there. I hadn't had the heart to go through them yet. Now I started searching. I went through her drawers, her suitcase, the small desk where she'd kept her laptop. I found medical bills, insurance papers, greeting cards from friends, and then in a folder labeled important, I found a stack of documents. My hands trembled as I flipped through them. There was a power of attorney, giving Derek control of her medical and financial decisions. There was a will, leaving everything to Derek, which was normal for a married couple, and then I found it. A letter in Sarah's handwriting, dated 8 months ago, right around when the deed must have been changed. Mom, it read, "If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I'm so sorry I didn't talk to you about the house." Derek convinced me it was the right thing to do for estate planning purposes. He said if something happened to me, it would be easier for you if he co-owned the house because he could help you manage it or sell it. If it became too much for you, he said it would avoid probate and make things simpler. I could see where she'd paused in her writing, probably crying. There was a small water stain on the paper. "He promised me he would take care of you, Mom. He swore to me. I made him look me in the eye and promised that he would never let you lose your home, that he would help you in any way you needed. I trust him because I have to. I'm so tired. And I can't fight anymore. Please forgive me if I made the wrong choice. I love you so much. You are the best mother anyone could ask for." Sarah, I collapsed on the floor, clutching the letter to my chest. My baby girl had been manipulated. Derek had used her fear and exhaustion to get her to sign over half my house. And he'd promised her, looked her in the eye and promised that he would take care of me. Rage like I'd never felt before burned through my grief. Derek had lied to my dying daughter. He'd betrayed her trust and mine. I called my sister Carol. He tricked her. I sobbed into the phone. He manipulated Sarah into giving him half the house. And now he's kicking me out. That bastard, Carol, hissed. She'd never liked Derek, always said there was something cold about him. I defended him because Sarah loved him, but Carol had been right. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Robert says Derek can force a sale. Then you fight him." Carol said firmly, "You fight him with everything you've got. Sarah would want you to keep that house. I'll help, whatever you need." After we hung up, I sat with Sarah's letter for a long time, and then I made a decision. Derek thought he could bully me, could push me out of my home while I was weak with grief. He had no idea who he was dealing with. The next morning, I called Derek and asked him to meet me at the house. I wanted to look him in the eye and see if he felt any shame at all for what he was doing. He showed up at noon, dressed in an expensive suit, like he'd come from the office. He walked into my living room like he already owned the place. "Margaret," he said, sitting down without being invited. "I'm glad you called. Have you started looking at senior communities? I found a few brochures I can leave with you. Some of them have nice amenities, pools, game rooms. You might actually enjoy it." I stared at him. "Derek, this is my home. I've lived here for almost 30 years. He sighed like I was being difficult. "I understand you're emotional right now. Grief can make us irrational, but you need to think practically. You're almost 60. You're alone. This house is too big, too much maintenance. What if you fall down those stairs? What if something breaks and you can't fix it? I'm 50-1, not 80. I said, my voice hard, and I'm perfectly capable of taking care of my own home. "It's not just about capability," he said, leaning back. "It's about what makes financial sense. This house is worth about $850,000. If we sell it, you'll get half. That's more than enough to set you up in a nice facility with money left over. It's a smart move." My blood boiled. "If we sell it, I get half." "Derek, this was my house. Sarah never lived here as an adult. You certainly never did." "Actually," he said, pulling out his phone and showing me a document. "According to the deed, Sarah owned half, and when she passed, her half came to me. So yes, we both own it 50-50. That's how joint tenancy works. You manipulated her." I said, my voice shaking. "She was dying, and you used that to trick her into putting your name on my house." His face hardened. "I didn't manipulate anyone. Sarah wanted to make sure her affairs were in order. I was her husband. It's completely normal for spouses to make estate plans. You promised her you'd take care of me." I pulled out Sarah's letter. She wrote this. She said you swore you'd never let me lose my home. For just a moment, something flickered in his Eyes guilt. Annoyance. It was gone before I could identify it. Plans change, he said coldly. Look, Margaret, I tried to be nice about this. But here's the reality. I own half this house. I want to sell. You can either agree and we'll split the proceeds, or I'll file for partition and force the sale through the courts. Either way. This house is getting sold. The only difference is how much money we waste on lawyers. Why are you doing this? I asked, tears streaming down my face. Sarah loved you. I welcomed you into our family. Why? He stood up, straightening his tie. Because I can. Because that's how the world works. Sarah's gone, and I'm moving on with my life. I suggest you do the same. You have 45 days. He walked out, leaving me shaking with rage and grief. After Derek left, I called Robert Chen again. He's really going to force the sale, I told him. What can I do? Robert was quiet for a moment. In a petition suit, the court will order the house sold and the proceeds split, unless… Margaret, did Derek contribute anything to the house? Any money for improvements, mortgage payments, anything? No, never. He and Sarah had their own place across town. And the deed modification, did you sign anything? Were you aware it was happening? No, Sarah must have done it herself. Or a thought occurred to me. Robert, can you check if my signature is on those deed papers? I heard typing. According to the filing. Margaret, there's a signature here that purports to be yours, notarized and everything. My heart stopped. That's impossible. I never signed anything. Are you absolutely certain? I thought back over the past year. Sarah's illness had been all-consuming. There had been so many papers to sign, medical forms, insurance documents, hospital admissions. Had Derek slipped something in? I never knowingly signed any deed changes, I said firmly. Robert. What if the signature is forged? That would be fraud. That would change everything. But we'd need to prove it. After hanging up with Robert, I started going through every piece of paper I'd signed in the last year. I made piles: medical, insurance, financial, and then I found something interesting. 8 months ago, Derek had brought over some insurance papers for me to sign. He said they were updates to Sarah's policy, that they needed my signature as next of kin. I'd been so worried about Sarah. I just signed where he pointed without reading carefully. I looked at the dates. The same week the deed was filed. That bastard had tricked me into signing something, probably told me it was insurance paperwork when it was actually the deed modification. The notary signature. I tried to remember. Had there been a notary there? No, I would have remembered that. I called Robert back. The signature might be mine, but I was told I was signing insurance papers, and I don't think it was properly notarized. We need to examine the original documents, Robert said. I'm going to file a motion to contest the deed modification. This is going to get messy. Margaret, are you prepared for that? I'm prepared to fight for my home, I said, but I needed more than just legal arguments. I needed to understand who Derek really was. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. Her name was Linda Torres, and Carol had recommended her. Linda was a former police detective who now ran her own agency. I want to know everything about Derek Morrison. I told her, his finances, his life, everything. What am I looking for specifically? Linda asked, taking notes. I don't know. Something that explains why he's doing this, or something that might help my case. Linda called me 3 days later. Mrs. Anderson, can I come over? I found some things you need to see. Linda arrived with a thick folder and a grim expression. Margaret, your son-in-law isn't who you think he is, she said, spreading photos and documents across my kitchen table. The first photo made my stomach turn. It showed Derek with a woman, clearly intimate, taken at a restaurant. The date stamp was from a year ago when Sarah was in the middle of her cancer treatment. He's been having an affair for at least 18 months, Linda said. Her name is Vanessa Cole. She's a real estate agent. My hands clenched into fists. He was cheating on Sarah while she was dying. It gets worse. Linda pulled out more documents. Derek's business isn't doing as well as he pretends. He's about $200. Zero in debt from bad investments. He needs money. And fast. That's when it all clicked into place. The house. Derek didn't just want to hurt me or move on with his life. He needed the money from the sale. There's more, Linda said quietly. I talked to some of Sarah's friends, apparently in her last weeks. Sarah told her best friend Melissa that she was worried about Derek. She said he'd been pressuring to make financial decisions, but she was too tired to understand everything. Melissa said Sarah seemed confused and scared, but Derek was always there, always controlling who could visit and when. I felt sick. He isolated her. It seems that way. And Melissa said something else interesting. Sarah apparently told her that she never wanted you to have to leave your house, that this house was your sanctuary after losing your husband. Tears rolled down my cheeks. She knew. She knew how much this place means to me. Linda pulled out one more document. This is a bank statement I obtained through, let's call it creative means, 3 weeks after Sarah died. Derek deposited a $50,000 check. The memo line says life insurance. I frowned. Sarah had a small policy through work, but it was only $25,000. We used it for funeral expenses. Exactly. So where did this $50,000 come from? Linda tapped the paper. I did some more digging. Turns out Derek took out a life insurance policy on Sarah about a year ago, a big one, $500,000. The room spun. He took out a policy on her when she was dying. Technically, she would have had to sign it. But given her state of mind and his pattern of behavior, he manipulated her into that too. I whispered. He knew she was going to die, and he saw it as a payday. Linda nodded grimly. I'm sorry. Margaret, I know this is hard to hear. Hard. Didn't begin to cover it. The man my daughter had loved, had trusted with her last wishes, had been betraying her in every possible way. He cheated on her, manipulated her, profited from her death, and was now trying to steal my home. Can we use this in court? I asked. Some of it. The affair establishes character. The insurance policy is legal, unfortunately, even if it's morally repugnant. But the isolation of Sarah, the manipulation that might help establish a pattern of undue influence, combined with your claim that you didn't knowingly sign the deed modification, we might have a case. I looked at the photo of Derek with his mistress again. They were smiling, toasting with wine glasses. The date, it was Sarah's birthday. He'd been out celebrating with another woman on my dying daughter's birthday. I'm going to destroy him, I said quietly. Linda smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Robert filed our lawsuit 3 weeks later. We weren't just contesting the deed modification, we were going after Derek for fraud, undue influence, and elder abuse. The elder abuse charge was a stretch, but Robert argued that Derek had deliberately deceived me into signing legal documents. Derek's lawyer was expensive and aggressive. The first few hearings were brutal. They painted me as a grief-stricken old woman who couldn't accept reality, who was making wild accusations against her son-in-law out of spite. But we had Linda's evidence. And we had something else. Melissa, Sarah's best friend, agreed to testify. The trial took place on a cold day in March, almost 5 months after Sarah's death. The courtroom was packed. Carol sat right behind me, her hand on my shoulder. Derek sat across the aisle with his lawyer, looking confident in another expensive suit. Vanessa, his mistress, was conspicuously absent. The first day was technical arguments about the deed, about property law, about joint tenancy. Derek's lawyer argued that everything had been legal and above board, that Sarah had willingly added Derek's name to protect her mother's interests. When it was our turn, Robert called me to the stand. "Mrs. Anderson," he said gently, "please tell the court about the day Derek brought you papers to sign." I took a deep breath and told the story. How Derek had said they were insurance forms. How I'd been so focused on Sarah's care that I'd just signed where he pointed. How there had been no notary present, despite what the deed filing claimed. "Did you ever intend to transfer half your house to your daughter?" "No, never. Sarah had her own life, her own home. This house was mine." Derek's lawyer cross-examined me aggressively, trying to make me seem confused or unreliable, but I held firm. I knew what I'd signed and what I hadn't. Then Robert called. Melissa. Melissa was a small woman with kind eyes, and you could see she'd been crying. She'd lost her best friend, but she was strong on the stand. Sarah told me she was worried. Melissa testified. She said Derek kept bringing her papers to sign, kept talking about money and planning. She was so tired from the chemo, and she just wanted to rest, but he kept pushing. "Did Sarah ever mention her mother's house?" Robert asked. "Yes. She said her biggest fear was that her mom would lose the house after she died. She said it was the only place where her mom still felt close to her dad. Sarah made me promise that if anything happened, I'd make sure Margaret could stay in her home." I saw Derek shift uncomfortably in his seat. Then Robert dropped the bomb. He pulled up the bank records showing the $50,000 life insurance deposit. "Mr. Morrison," Robert said when Derek took the stand, "can you explain this deposit?" Derek's lawyer objected, arguing it was irrelevant, but the judge allowed it. "It was from a life insurance policy," Derek said stiffly. "A policy you took out on your wife while she was dying of cancer. It was a prudent financial decision, and 3 weeks after her funeral. You told your mother-in-law to move to a senior home so you could sell her house. Also a prudent financial decision." "Objection," Derek's lawyer shouted. But the damage was done. The jury could see who Derek really was. The deliberation took 2 days. 2 days of me barely sleeping, barely eating, just waiting. When the jury came back, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The 4 women stood. In the matter of the deed modification, we find in favor of the plaintiff, Margaret Anderson. We find that the deed modification was obtained through fraud and misrepresentation. I gasped. Carol grabbed my hand. Furthermore, the 4 women continued, "We award Mrs. Anderson damages in the amount of $100,000 for emotional distress and elder abuse." Derek's face went white. The judge spoke. "Mr. Morrison, the deed modification is hereby voided. The house belongs solely to Mrs. Margaret Anderson. Additionally, you are ordered to pay the awarded damages within 90 days. This court finds your behavior toward your dying wife and her mother to be reprehensible." I burst into tears. I'd won. My home was mine. But it wasn't over yet. As we left the courtroom, Linda pulled me aside. "I did some more digging after we filed suit. I found something else." She showed me a document. It was a prenuptial agreement between Derek and Vanessa, dated to months after Sarah's death. "He was planning to marry her." I said, "Yes, and look at the asset disclosure." I scanned the document. Derek had listed the house, my house, as a marital asset worth $850,000. He was going to marry Vanessa and use the house sale to start their life together. Linda said, "I gave this to the district attorney's office. They're investigating him for insurance fraud related to Sarah's policy. It turns out you need an insurable interest to take out a policy on someone, and they're questioning whether he met that requirement given the affair." 3 months later, Derek was indicted. He took a plea deal that involved paying back the insurance money and serving probation. His business collapsed under the weight of his debts and the scandal. Vanessa left him. As for me, I still live in My house, every room holds memories of Tom and Sarah, and I wouldn't trade them for anything. I converted Sarah's old bedroom into an art studio. She always wanted me to pursue my painting. Something I'd given up when she was born. Now I paint every day, and I've even started selling pieces at local galleries. Carol moved into the guest house I built in the backyard with some of the $100,000 from Derek. We have coffee together every morning and watch the sun rise over the garden where Sarah used to play. I also started a support group for widows and people dealing with grief. We meet here in my living room every Tuesday night. Helping others heal has helped me heal too. Sometimes I stand in the kitchen where Derek told me to move to a senior home, and I smile. He thought I was weak, thought grief had made me easy to manipulate. He learned the hard way that a mother's love and a mother's fury is a force to be reckoned with. This house isn't just wood and brick, it's where I raised my daughter, where I loved my husband, where I've built my life. And no one was going to take that from me. Sarah's last letter to me is framed on my bedroom wall. Every night before bed, I read the last line, "You are the best mother anyone could ask for." And every night, I whisper back, "I fought. For us, baby girl, I fought for our home, and I won, because that's what mothers do. We fight, we protect, we survive, and we never, ever give up." If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours? Your story matters, and remember, you're stronger than you think.